today, by the way?
Hey, hi, hi. Uh, Nobody's viewing us yet, but this is your new show, Climate Changes. And it was scheduled for 9:05, and there's been some goofy stuff happening lately with the internet. And I don't know if you know about the last time, but Antonio's crashed, and it was Be Live that crashed.
Oh,
We
oh
don't want
wow.
anything like that to happen this time. I have no idea what happened, but this
Yeah.
is your show. We'll wait for some people to join us. Did you do anything for Earth Day?
No. Just
No,
another
me
day.
neither.
Yeah.
Just another
Just
day.
another
All
day.
right. Now I want to take, well then since no, you know what I want to do? I'm just trying to, since all right, we have one viewer. I want to move you over a little bit so you're sitting up a little and people can see your face a little bit more. And welcome, Nicholas. You look great.
Thanks.
You look terrific. All right. Well, we've got one person. If people are, can help us by sharing that join, that would be great to the groups that you think are important to listen, because this is a good, busy message. It's a good message. So we're starting the
Yeah.
show. So, and Steve's with us. Okay, people are joining. Great. So if you could share for us, this is good. And Nick is he works very hard on all this material. And so take it away, Nick, for your first climate changes with Nick Humphrey. We will get better at this and get better internet. I hope I get better internet. Okay, take it away.
Sure. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Nick Humphrey, as you know, meteorologist based in Alaska. I wanted to talk, do sort of updates, especially every month or so on the state of the. And I did it. I did one for my blog in the past week, and I was looking forward to being able to share something on a live show. So that's what I'm looking to do right now. So basically, looking at the climate, the state of the climate, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on what happened in March in a moment, since I know people are still trying to get in on the show, especially since the time of it changed. But
Yeah, we're early. I'm
obviously,
so sorry. I have
yeah,
no idea how that happened. So we can do a
no
little filler
worries.
time, but all right.
Yeah, but basically, facing is a rapid acceleration in global climate change, which is obviously having impacts on real people, infrastructure, and of course the biosphere globally, from the Amazon rainforest to the Arctic, from your hometown all the way to the deepest ocean basin. So I think it's important for folks like me to be able to go on go out and talk to people, as many people that will listen about the changes that are underway. Um, regardless of what you think about mitigation or adaptation measures or not. Um, we're in a state where the environment is very um, you know humans have done and have baked in profound changes to the climate system, to the biosphere, that will affect one of us and those in the future. So I think being able to discuss what's happening and talk about what's happening and have realistic assessment of the state of our climate and our environment and the stabilization is very important, and we need to be aware of what's happening, because there's a lot of creatures on this planet that don't have the ability to do that, and we have the right and the ability to do so, and we should be able to communicate with each other in an honest manner about the state of affairs. So see who's in right now. Oh, more people coming in. few more. Everyone thought it was going to be after 9 Eastern. So.
I know. I'm so sorry. Well, you know, hey, listen,
Yeah,
I have my
happens,
Water is Life
things
shirt on
happen.
today,
Mhm.
and that's how I celebrated the I don't know if anybody could even see me. I think I'm not even supposed to be on. I have my Water is Life shirt on. I'm in a good mood. Um,
I think it's
you
more
know,
fun when you're on too.
you think it's more fun? Really? I can't seem to
Yeah,
get my
yeah.
camera angle right because I put this goofy ass frame up.
Yeah, I
Our
see that.
professional first show. Yeah. But you know what?
Mhm.
I really want to hear about what events are going on around the world, and whatever,
Yeah,
however you want to segue back to what you were writing about in your blog, your
yeah,
Patreon is
absolutely.
really very good.
Yeah,
I think everybody
yeah,
should contribute to Nicholas' Patreon. I mean, you get really good stuff in there and all the good links. So, well, let's see.
yeah.
Steve's here. Oh, you know what? Steve he says he'd like to discuss the permafrost methane bomb. That's a good one. And you know what
Yeah.
else from last time? Lee Hampton, but she's not on with us right now. Her question was from like last month. It had to do
Yeah.
with this. She lives in the Midwest too, and it had to do with how the wind was blowing one direction and now it goes in a different direction. It is a jet stream. And
Jet
when
stream.
you
Yeah.
start talking, oh, Trevor's here with us. Hi, Trevor. When you start talking about what you're going to get into, I'm going to get off and I'm going to look for her question, even though she's not with us, because then I'll just tell her you answered it finally.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. So, okay, so I'll start going over what happened. It's kind of crazy. Things are getting so crazy. I can spend a lot of time just on 1 month. It didn't used to be that way, but
Right.
things are quite serious, unfortunately. So, so obviously, www.patreon.com/meteorologist Nick Humphrey, and I posted uh, 2 YouTube videos with a slide presentation on the global climate for March 2019, and then also a second sort of bonus video on the state of global drought, which I thought was very important and not discussed very much in the context of abrupt climate change. And what I went over was global and hemispheric temperature anomalies, the state of the Arctic, which has been obviously in the news and a big deal amongst us that are tracking abrupt climate change in recent months and years. Notable global extreme events that occurred, and obviously I discuss the global drought. So basically, the March of 2019 was, depending on the data set, was either the second or third warmest March on record.
Wow.
Again, depending on the data set, the 1850s to the 1880s. So it averaged around 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial for the month. You had significant temperature anomalies, anywhere from 4 to greater than 12 degrees Celsius over much of Siberia, Eastern Europe, extending into the Arctic, extending into Alaska. Alaska had essentially a heat wave in March and much of winter, really.
Yeah.
The some of the warmest temperatures ever observed in in terms of like monthly records were set in across Alaska, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and I'll go over that more in a little bit. But you also had very, very abnormal heat across in Australia, New Zealand, parts of Africa, South Africa. So it was quite significant what was occurring in the month of March, and also throughout the first quarter of the year as well. You had temperature values of also approaching 1.4 degrees above pre-industrial. So it is just hot for the planet. It doesn't matter whether it was winter, doesn't matter whether it was the summer hemisphere. The abnormal heat was everywhere that it could be seen.
Been seeing it, and it's scary.
And yeah, it's scary. And you're seeing an increasing not only Arctic amplification, which gets talked about a lot with regards to abrupt climate change. As you lose the sea ice, the Arctic feeds back on that by warming more and more faster than the globe as a whole. You're also seeing land amplification, where the land masses are becoming much warmer than the globe as a whole, which of course includes much of the ocean sea surface. If you just look at the land area, March 2019 was near 1.9, perhaps even 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial values. It was for the land surfaces of planet Earth. So it was extremely warm over the land areas of the planet throughout the 2019, and of course in March. And I looked at specifically the northern hemisphere for land, air, sea surface, and just looking at the land air temperature, it was again around 2 degrees Celsius for the month of March, and around 1.6 degrees relative to pre-industrial for January through March of 2019. And for the air temperature, it was nearly 2 degrees. So, I mean, very profound anomalies throughout the northern hemisphere. That's why you had such significantly warm temperatures in the Pacific Northwest, very persistent warmth this winter in early spring in Europe. Whereas the U.S. Pacific Northwest, they flipped because of the weakening jet stream between having all the snow and cold in February to having record heat in March. But overall, the northern hemisphere was just extremely, extremely warm relative to what it would have been back before the United States even existed. I looked over the data for the southern hemisphere and noted that the land, air, sea, and sea surface average for March 2019, which was around 1.2 C above pre-industrial, 1.2 to 1.3, was actually tied a record for the warmest March on record for the southern hemisphere. And it was also a record for the land air temperature alone. Yeah. So land masses that Australia, southern half of Africa. I know a couple months ago, parts of South America, southern tip of South America, had the hottest temperature ever observed for so far south in the southern hemisphere, just across the pond from West Antarctica, having temperatures near 90 degrees.
And what are the effects? I mean, on everything down there.
Well, the effects in Australia have been ugly. I mean, you've seen just endless drought, aridification of crop grazing lands, and when they're not getting drought, they get titanic rain events that flood entire countrysides and turn them into inland seas. It seems to be an increasingly prominent problem that people don't really seem to connect the dots on. You see, all these mega floods. We call them mega floods because they're just so much bigger than anything anyone had ever seen in the past. In interior North America, the Midwest U.S., the Middle East, in Iran, and Australia, and Queensland. It's a very, very tendency towards dryness, but abruptly ended with crazy water. And I think that's the biggest threat that people don't grasp with climate change, is that you're going to be dealing with rapid swings between extremes that your infrastructure, your agriculture, everything you depend on to live as a human being cannot handle.
There's a gal that's a friend of mine on the NT, or well, she's Facebook friend, posted a picture from Australia about the trees that are dying, and it's just so sad. Today, Nicholas, I just wanted to say that today I watched all morning. I was in on the climate conference. We Don't Have Time.
Yeah.
And with all of this that's happening, there's a lot of people that have a lot invested in either reversing, changing, doing. And, I didn't want to get into this quick. I just want to say that we always sound so like, oh my God, and it is not a rosy, pretty picture. But we're not on this like desert island because people are doing all kinds of things. And I have a cat that's trying to get in the room. And that just segues me to where Patrick McNulty, Patrick McNulty came in and he said, Nicholas, you should take a look at ocean mechanical thermal energy conversion. Have you seen his page, Ocean Tunnels?
Oh, a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't had it's interesting. But I mean, just like, like these, not solutions per se, but things that people are talking about doing, all kinds of mitigation and all. And that's it. I'm going to be quiet. That's what I did today, though, for Earth Day. And I was part of it because Dr. Daniel Bougie, that Antonio had on the other night, he spoke today. And he's so inspirational. Oh, my God. All right, take it away, Nick.
No, it's fine. I actually listened I didn't get to finish the whole interview, but I listened to a portion of it.
Cool.
To like I think the first 30 minutes of it, and I was going to listen to more of it later tonight. But he's very very intelligent man, and I look forward to finishing the interview. And it's nice to get a perspective from someone that actually lives in Africa, because Africa, I mean, let's be frank, it just gets forgotten. Nobody seems to think about Africa. Barely in the U.S., barely people think about Canada.
Really? You're right.
Yeah, I mean,
you're right. He's just a leader. He's a leader. He inspired me. He inspired me.
I mean, the thing is that obviously most people that track my work know that I tend to believe, if you will, based on the scientific evidence that there's a 6 mass extinction going on this planet right now that's accelerating, and humans being the top of the food chain probably won't fare for that scenario.
Not a belief, that's fact.
Yeah.
We just don't have a timeline.
Yeah, we don't have timeline. And but in the meantime, there's going to be a lot of basically destruction because of Mother Nature turning its energy in wrath, gave it back at us. And I think that humans, regardless of the future and our survival on the planet, can do a lot to alleviate suffering and not have to just sit around and wait to die. And and I see all of these things that are happening that are the very antithesis of that. I mean the doctor yesterday was discussing the fact that in Nigeria they have a very corrupt government, and they don't seem to care about getting elected, and not about. It sounds very familiar. seems to be.
But he was unbelievable. He was a progressive.
Yeah.
I mean, he really got our country. What did he say? He said that the rest of the world is basically sitting around waiting to take a bet on when the United States will collapse. Holy shit.
I mean, that's I mean, when the hyperpower falls, is going to be a big spoils going on for everything, resources, everything else, because the United States won't be able to steal anymore. But of course, if it gets so bad to the point that the United States collapses, what's happened to everybody else?
Well, the domino effect.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's what has to happen. But I know we're getting away from weather. And climate and all.
It's an interdisciplinary issue, so I mean, I don't mind going off on those tangents for a little bit. But in terms of some of the extreme, just last month, I mean, we can talk about the Arctic, obviously. the Arctic had its fifth warmest March on record, and I noted that five of the, or actually four of the warmest years on or Marches on record have been in the past 6 years. So it's gotten abruptly warmer in the month of March. So you're getting progressively hotter months in the winter time because the winters are obviously the cold, so they warm the fastest. But that's beginning to expand more into the climatological spring, warmer Octobers, warmer Marches, and obviously last summer, and really the past couple summers, you've seen very hot summertime months in the Arctic too. And last summer we had 90-degree weather near the Arctic Ocean, and with El Nino already warming the planet and sort of augmenting what climate change is doing at faster and faster speeds, you could certainly see an extremely warm spring and summer in the Arctic again. And you're already seeing the effects of that on the ice. Melt is already underway on Greenland. Greenland is facing areas of above freezing temperatures near the sea, near the ice sheet. So you already have melting that would usually be typical of perhaps May happening, mid-May happening right now, at the end of March, early April into mid-April. The sea ice extent is at record lows, daily record lows. Been that way for about, I think, 2.5 weeks now. Maybe 3 weeks.
Torstein was dallying around with the Blue Ocean event, and then I read the article by oh my God, I don't know why I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, talking about this serious issue, and we've been talking about it, and it's like I just feel so powerless sometimes.
Yeah.
And as a meteorologist, how do you deal with it? What are your coping skills?
Well, I mean, as a meteorologist, I've been out in the weather and gone out and storm chased and experienced other types of huge weather events. And you kind of realize the insane power of Mother Nature. It's just, humans always like to think they're in control of everything.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of the day, our control is an illusion based on stability that nature provided to us. And then, now that stability is gone, it basically started to pull away from us 250 years ago, and has really started to pull away from us in the past 40 to 60 years. And, now we're in a climate that's alien to the world, even from when I was born 35 years ago. It's a completely different place. People, may not seem that way if you're so like engrossed in civilization affairs. You go into work, you being on the hamster wheel, basically. But if you look at the fires burning in places where it used to be moist, you look at places that used to be dry suddenly becoming, deluged with water. People complain about people. Why are people on floodplains and stuff? Well, they used to be on the floodplains because they didn't have to worry about gigantic floods happening so frequently.
Yeah.
The water would rise slowly and fertilize the soil. That's what the Fertile Crescent was about, and
right.
All the building here in the plains. Now those floods are devastating and so huge in volume that they destroy everything, leave sand, making farmlands look like beaches in the middle of Nebraska. And,
that's we're going to get there. I wanted to ask about that, but I want to get to this question Andrew asked. How powerful can we expect the hurricanes to get as climate change advances? That's a good question because it's kinds of segues to what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you've started to see some of that power in the past few years, especially. Two aspects of what you could call power in cyclones and tropical cyclones and hurricanes. There's power in terms of the intensification and how strong the system can actually get. There's also power in terms of the precipitation that it can produce, the rainfall, the huge amounts of rain. As the globe warms as a whole, it can hold more moisture, which means for any given meteorological setup that would produce rainfall, you can get more, much more, out of that same process. So hurricanes are very warm, very waterlogged systems. They produce heavy rainfall as it is. It doesn't matter what climate it's in, but as you warm the climate, there's more moisture that can go into the hurricane, more precipitation that can dump out. And that's just the precipitation rate. The amount of precipitation you get per hour or whatever in a short term, you can get more in a warmer climate. In addition to that, as the climate of the planet warms, there's less your general circulation pattern, the flow that causes systems to move from west to east, or in the mid latitudes from east to west, in the tropics. Everything slows down, so you're getting more energy that's being brought up vertically instead of horizontally. So you're getting less strong, weaker horizontal winds and stronger vertical motion, which produces bigger storms, and they go slower. So they go sit over an area and move very slowly for days and deluge a location. This is what happened with Hurricane Harvey, with Hurricane Florence in the United States. This is what happened with a random tropical wave that went over Australia a couple months ago and dumped a huge amount of rain over Queensland, and many feet of rain, and caused the formation of what was essentially an inland sea over thousands of square miles of grazing land that had been in drought. So it was in drought, and then they get this huge mega flood. And then, of course, there's the actual intensification. The more moisture you have that enters the atmosphere, the more release of latent heat that doesn't go into warming or cooling anything, but instead goes into phase change. So it changes phase from a liquid to a gas, and then to a liquid again. It releases heat that warms the environment in the center of the cyclone and causes it to rapidly intensify faster and faster. So you get systems that overall strengthen faster, are more likely to be very powerful, Category 4, Category 5 storms, and then they move slower, and they're full of more moisture, so they dump more rain and do so over a longer time period. I mean, it's like literally the perfect ingredients for a perfect storm, except it happens every year now. It happens in Harvey, and then in Hurricane Lane in Hawaii, and Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, and some random event in Queensland, Australia, or Cyclone Idai in Mozambique. These are all symptoms of the effects of a planet that's getting too warm,
which is not going to go backwards.
No.
And so that's where the Dr. Jem Bendell and Positive Deep Adaptation, and Carolyn Baker and Dean Spillane Walker, that's where all the people that are trying to support the psychological health, and there's a lot more of all of us that are awake anyway. That's where they come in.
Yeah. I mean, when the thing with human psychology is and mental health is a sense of stability, and obviously if your stability is disrupted in other various ways in society, or there are issues with social issues, obviously that affects your mental health. But this is kind of new for humans, especially on a global scale, to have a change in climate affect your mental health, because instead of just, say, you see an event happening far away, it hurts some people, that upsets you, that maybe those people got hurt, or you get an event that affects you, that there's at least perhaps a future, because you can either rebuild where you are, or go somewhere else.
Well,
Here,
like
this is
Lori went through. Lori, who's with
Yeah.
us right now, she has post-traumatic stress disorder from Harvey, and she was caught in a flash flood. Her house was underwater before she could even get out.
Yeah.
I was following. I mean, we're really with Lori. All of us online here were, sending our love and
Harvey
everything else we could.
Harvey for me was scary, and I wasn't even close to Harvey. I was here in Nebraska, and I remember I remember seeing, or the forecast of what was going to happen, and but to actually I remember when the rains first started in Houston, looking at radar, looking at video, what was happening there. And then about 8 hours later, I wake up at like 4:30 in the morning, and I go to my computer to check out what's happening there. And it's still going on. It's still raining, still pouring buckets. And then I force myself to go back to sleep. And then I wake up at 9, and it's still happening. It's still raining. It's still storming. And that's when it dawned. That's when the reality of climate change. This was kind of when I was just starting to really learn about abrupt climate change, in the work of Guy McPherson, Paul Beckwith, Dr. James White, who deals a lot with the Arctic.
That's how you got down the rabbit hole.
Harvey, for me, I looked at that and I was like, that's what we will see in the future all the time.
Oh my
Those
God.
events will not be as like I heard evidence as perhaps a 5 to 10,000 year type of event, meaning it's like extremely low probability of happening in any given year, and this is not going to be one. I mean, we've already seen events like I said, Hurricane Lane, Hurricane Florence, that are comparable in devastation to their areas to this event. It's only been like 2 years ago less than 2 years ago that Harvey occurred. And so, I see this and I'm like, this is the future. And I got into arguments with, some meteorologists that did not like the implication of it being connected to climate change. And there was arguments that were quasi-political and, I was kind of surprised by that. And then obviously scientists that actually study climate change within like not too long after came out and basically said, the rains were made much more likely because of climate change. It just, obviously the scientific evidence and research matters, but just from a perspective of, what do you expect in your climate, even at the extreme ends of it, this was like way beyond anything that had ever happened in that region, in the record of that region. And people have been living in Texas for a while now, 1840s, 1830s for settlers, Spaniards. I mean, so I mean, it was ugly, and scary to see that, and now to see what's happened just since late 2017, it's like it's normal now. Like that, it seems like Harvey was like the turning point. Not even Katrina. Katrina was sort of like, to me, in the hindsight, Katrina was like the forebearer of what was to come. This is what's coming down the pike. Right here, this mega flood of a huge city. I've been to New Orleans. I went to New Orleans like 4 years after Katrina and saw the water on the interstate in New Orleans. And, that was like what was coming down the pike. And then here we go, Hurricane Harvey, an inland mega flood. And then now since then, it's like it's normal now. You just get mega floods now. You get, Wayne on Big Island, Florence, Adai, some random tropical Queensland. It's just normal, and nobody thinks it's any no climate change
Well,
happening.
we
It's like,
all
okay,
do.
okay, yeah,
And the
we
people
know.
that are living it,
You know?
like
Yeah, and the people that
in
are
the
living it,
well, Indonesia, the rains that have
yeah,
happened there. I mean, we see it
Indonesia,
on. We watch these shows that are
yeah,
online. We see all of this stuff. They don't show, or if they do on the mainstream media, they show a 2-minute snippet, and everybody in this country goes, "Oh, it's them. It's over there." You know, it doesn't
yeah,
affect us, and then when it does affect us, it's what not they're still not going to on the mainstream, but they are getting a little better, though, I have to say. Every time something comes on about climate change,
yeah,
get my camera and I video it to television.
yeah. Yeah, I look, and like in my presentation on Patreon, on my Patreon, I listed all the notable global March extremes, and this wasn't exhaustive. There were other things that I could have added. I mean, you had Cyclone Idai, catastrophic flooding, more than 1,000 deaths, 3 million displaced, $1 billion in damage. Costliest cyclone on record for the Southwest Indian Ocean. Middle East, Southwest Asia floods. Destructive flooding in Iran, killed and injured hundreds, displaced hundreds of thousands, greater than $2 billion in damage, and it impacted Iraq, Syria, the UAE, Pakistan, Afghanistan. You had the U.S. Great Plains, Midwest river flood, estimated by AccuWeather, with the direct impacts plus the impacts that come after the immediate event and in the longer term, $12.5 billion. Heat waves in Alaska, Canada, Northwest, just ridiculous amounts of heat, like summertime conditions in Alaska and Seattle, extreme heat in India and Australia, a violent tornado in Nepal. I mean, Nepal, a tornado that would be comparable to the devastating tornadoes you can get here on the Great Plains in the South, deep South, in Nepal.
Yeah.
Devastating flooding in Peru, Paraguay, Ecuador, Colombia. I mean, you mentioned Indonesia. I forgot to mention Indonesia. You had two cyclones that struck Australia within 2 days of each other. Not particularly violent cyclones, but they produced a lot of rainfall and flooding.
I got a question for you. I do
Yeah,
have a question for you.
yeah,
Before, I don't know if Patrick is still here, Patrick McNulty. He had a comment about, well, Nicholas, and I'm looking for it. Do you support geoengineering? And now because his ish solution for the Arctic is a geoengineering project, but of course isn't. It's not chemtrails. I mean, so many people say,
yeah,
chemtrails is
yeah,
geoengineering. No, we're talking about all the different things that the carbon capture and all those different things. Because his is ocean tunnels, which is it's actually the guy on Just Have a Think YouTube did a spectacular job on it, and I'll send you the video. You can at least see what the proposal is.
yeah.
It's taking the Gulf Stream waters basically and refreezing the Arctic with cold water. But it's I of course am an idiot here. I cannot explain it, and I've had Patrick on to talk about it before. So okay, go ahead. Then I digress.
Well, with geoengineering, like to me, the greatest problem with any geoengineering effort is to deal with the causative agent of the heating of the planet, and that's the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and methane and nitrous oxide, which they've now discovered is coming out much faster from the Arctic permafrost than had it been originally thought. I think like 12 times more higher rate than originally thought, and that's a powerful greenhouse gas, even in a small concentration, but it adds up. And the thing with geoengineering is if you don't get rid of the actual gas that is warming, that's retaining the heat and causing the energy imbalance, as they say, in the global climate system, you cannot stop climate change. Because climate change is a manifestation of the change that was done to the atmosphere. So it's an atmospheric chemistry problem. And so if you try to cool the Arctic in some way, shape, or form, well, the mid latitudes are still warming because of the greenhouse gases. The mid to upper troposphere is still warming because of the greenhouse gases. And so there comes a point when whatever geoengineering effort you're trying to do gets overwhelmed by the fact that the rest of the planet is still warming. And it's not just the direct warming of the greenhouse gases, it's also the loops that go into accelerating that warming because the Earth is in energy imbalance, so it wants to get to that state as quickly as possible.
Well, Patrick says
So,
OPEC does.
Yeah.
So you'll have to check it out. You'll definitely just have to check it out.
But basically, the biggest that your ice will continue to melt because the Arctic Ocean, which is huge, continues to warm by the warming Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. So the ice continues to melt, which continues to bring in more heat. Your land masses are warming. You're losing ice from Antarctica, from Greenland, from the land glacial ice. So that's less albedo there as well. More water, more heat is being poured into increasingly into melting the ice sheet, so the sea levels rise. Geoengineering to me is like applying a band-aid to basically to a stab wound, to a bunch of stab wounds, like one band-aid. It does not really tackle the heart of the problem, which is the carbon dioxide and the methane and the chlorofluorocarbons and nitrous oxide. And the reason it can't is because you can't take those things out of the atmosphere fast enough for human interests and for the interests of the biosphere. I know that I've heard estimates that the amount of carbon that humans have burned in the past 250 years is it took 200 million years for the Earth's plants to sequester. So you're trying. So in order to stop cataclysmic climate change, you have to remove 200 million years worth of essentially plant growth that sequestered that carbon in, well, they say 10 or 12 years. You have to do it now. You have to do it now. You have to do it fast, because every moment of every day, more ice is being destroyed from the planet, which is feeding back into warming the planet faster, because the planet is in a severe energy balance and wants to get to balance faster, and that speed continuously picks up pace. It's just with natural climate change, it's still thousands of years, but we've altered the atmosphere so dramatically that the Earth goes so much fast to catch up to what we've done to it. So for me, I'm extremely skeptical of geoengineering efforts, because I can think of many ways that they can be that the planet, just by my understanding of thermodynamics, the different various ways the planet can overcome them very fast.
Well, I'm going to segue a little bit to ask you a question, because Lee has joined us, and Lee is the person I told you that had the question about the circulation of the air in where she lives. I don't know, Lee, if you want to put it up, but it was basically had to do with the winds have shifted. They're not in the same direction that that historically they went. And I hope she has that question ready because I know she joined us. I saw her name. Hi, Lee. If you joined us, that's the question. Can you get my drift by my really loud?
Well, I can talk about the jet stream in general.
What's happening in like the Midwest?
Yeah. So basically, the jet stream itself, everyone might know it, but I'll just explain it real quick. Is a river of air in the upper atmosphere. Its existence is dependent upon the pressure gradient, intense pressure gradient between the high latitudes and low latitudes, and since temperature is related to pressure, it's resultant from a intense temperature gradient between the different latitudes, the high latitudes and the lower latitudes. So what happens with a large scale river of air that's balanced between pressure gradients and also Coriolis that wants to turn in a certain direction is when the airflow is strong, you get a fairly straight airflow pattern with not very with few huge waves, somewhat smaller waves that are progressing more from west to east, and you get a lot of storms that form at the surface. Your mid-latitude cyclones, your frontal systems that have a good progression from west to east or from southwest to northeast, et cetera, et cetera. But as the Arctic has warmed much faster than the mid-latitudes, that causes the jet stream to slow down because your temperature gradient is weakening. As your temperature gradient weakens, the component of energy and in the flow is less what we call progressive, going from west to east, and more south to north, and north to south is less latitudinal and more longitudinal. And so as a result of that, you get more huge waves of high amplitude. So you get waves that want to go all the way up to Alaska and then extend way south to Southern California and northern Mexico. And when you get these huge wave action in the atmosphere, think of it like an ocean surface with huge waves. They tend to slower progression from west to east, and you get breaking waves, what we call cutoffs. So cutoff lows that sit over the same place for days, dumping heavy rain, heavy snow, etc. Or you might get cutoff highs, these huge heat domes that sit over, say, Alaska, like it did last month and early this month, producing very, very, very abnormally warm weather. So essentially, you have climate change, you have global warming as sort of your canvas, but on top of that, you get these huge waves that don't move very much, that produce abnormally cold conditions relative to your recent climate. It still might be warmer than it was, but it doesn't matter when it's dumping heavy snow or producing persistent cold over your area. And then many more places that get more weather that's even more anomalously warm than it would otherwise be, just from the background global warming that's affecting the individual regions locally. And that contributes to things such as the abnormal heavy snow we had here in the parts of the Midwest that melted and produced flash flooding, or the melting of the sea ice in the Bering Sea. Basically, it's a blue ocean event in the Bering Sea. There's very little sea ice left in the Bering Sea past couple of years because of this process. Or you get rapid swings between those phases, such as in Seattle, where they had their snowiest February on record, to the hottest March temperature on record in a matter of a few weeks apart. So, your jet stream becomes much more turbulent, unstable, and you get huge wave action that produce greater extremes in the weather in the northern hemisphere. And you're starting to see this more in the southern hemisphere too, as sea ice is beginning to reduce severely in the southern hemisphere, and your oceans are warming in the southern hemisphere as well. So you're getting crazy wave action in the southern hemisphere jet stream too, which produces heat domes over Australia, and they get very hot too.
So this could answer her question about the fact that that that's how she had explained it to me. But really
well, for
quick,
her, for somebody that just tracks what's happening on the ground,
Indiana.
it might be just, oh, I'm seeing much more southerly winds than we used to during this time of year, and it's warmer, it's hotter, it's wetter than it used to be, or it could be the opposite, where we're getting all these. I mean, I could describe it that way, just like a layperson, where we're getting all these significant cold waves. Occasionally, this area, sir, could get snow in March or April. It's not, it's by itself, it's not abnormal to see such cold waves in this part of the country in March and April. You could see it 100 years ago, but you get persistence. You get persistent cold. So that like last year, it was the third coldest April on record in Lincoln, Nebraska, in a region of the world and on a planet that's warming.
Yeah.
How do you get the third coldest April on record
but then that's when the climate deniers come in and say, oh, there is no global warming.
Yeah, it's because they don't understand the dynamic circulations that are impacted.
They think they do, and they're scientists.
Yeah, they think
there's
they
a laundry list of scientists.
Yeah.
You can get them all their names on DSMOG, blah.
Yeah.
So what's going on down there in the peanut gallery, guys? I think we're going on, let me see, because we started early. So we're going on, what, 40 minutes?
Yeah.
So I think maybe we'll, you want to wrap up and you want to talk about something to bring us full circle? Anybody have questions or anything for Nick on his maiden voyage with me running the show? I don't know. I don't see. I see some. Let's see. They're talking about glaciers. Oh, Andrew, what did you say? What sucks is that the climate deniers all live where polar vortexes hit. Haha. Okay, Nick, explain it to us. That don't. Well, I explain that to the polar vortex.
Oh,
that's the cold air. Oh, did he freeze? Are you kidding me? Did you freeze? Well, we were going to end anyway. It always seems like, I don't know, but I have this theory. I don't know why my internet is so bad. I mean, and his then. It shouldn't be. So he's gone. So I guess we'll end the show. It was a good show. Andrew, the polar vortexes are where it's cold. Yeah, I wanted him to explain the actual, where the jet stream brings down the cold air. Everybody, thank you for coming. Well, you just, when it's a hobby, we take what we can get on internet here. And hi, Cheryl and Patrick. He said he'll change his mind. All right. I don't know what happened. It happens. We get kicked off. I mean, if he comes back on, but I'm gonna let you guys go. It's been a long one. Thanks for coming. It was fun, actually. Even though we're talking about the most depressingly sad subjects, we have to be able to deal with our lives, and we have to take action. And what the comment was, action is, from Chris, is the antidote to despair. And that's what Extinction Rebellion's about. Nicholas brings us all the bad news because he's a climatologist, meteorologist. Get everybody on here that gives us all different perspectives. So when you feel icky, there's support out there too, about all this stuff. And we bring it to you. So have a good night, guys. And Cheryl, thank you. And everybody, Michael and Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks, guys. Nicholas is back. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nicholas. Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, my internet cut off for a second. So.
Yeah, wow, you look better than before. What happened?
Oh, really?
Well, we were just actually saying the goodbyes. And
okay. Well,
so if you want to give your last little goodbyes, and
yeah, sure.
Since you came back, I'll let you have the screen.
Yeah, no problem. So basically, I think that 2019 definitely has a risk of being a top 3, hottest year on record, if not the hottest year on record. It appears that that El Nino could persist in strength going into the year, and obviously, with climate change becoming more abrupt in terms of its acceleration of events, that pose a risk, and obviously that risk is for extreme heat events, more extreme heat around the world this summer. That's a big concern. Obviously, we saw what happened in the southern hemisphere, in Australia, and southern South America with either extreme heat, drought, fires, some of which are still ongoing. Given the northern hemisphere is mostly land area, you could certainly see a lot of extreme heat yet again this year across much of the northern hemisphere, and it's already extreme in a lot of places. You're already getting extreme heat. It's just 70s and 80s when it should be in the 50s or 40s or something. So degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously, I think this year is going to be much like last year, a big warning sign of how far off the cliff we are and the effects are going to be felt by the average person in more and more places. And also, we'll be seeing just more and more of these extreme flood events. So for me, I think people need to be realistic in their assessment of the future. Understand that economically going to be increasingly there's going to be instability, socially in terms of warfare and other problems because of climate change, and people need to around the world just have to be for that best of their ability, and understanding that the power of their money, the power of their ability to get food that they need could be impacted. I mean, I've already noticed in the grocery store today were much higher than I've seen really recently. Particularly, I glanced around, saw certain meat prices and produce prices were much higher, and those things have fluctuated. That's really what the future means for us as these severe weather events, which are related to climate change, magnitude, intensity, and duration, continue to accelerate. So, I mean, it sounds like a lot of dire straits. What it is just the reality of the situation, and I will continue reports on what's happening and provide analysis and understanding for people that want to know what's going on. And you can follow me on Facebook at I think it's under Meteorologist Nick Humphrey, and obviously I'm on my Patreon too. And and all the support that I've gotten is been very appreciated by me, and helps out.
Well, you got this venue once a month, whenever or more, whatever you see fit to do, which is great. And we communicate and share information, and I appreciate it, and so does everybody else. Because really, we're you don't sugarcoat anything, and why should you?
Yeah.
But Lori's going to end the last comment with "Be adaptable." We have no choice. We have no choice, so we are. And as long as I'm here and doing this, I will bring you all the information of how you can do that on Facebook until they kick me off, because that's what I think they're trying to do. And all of a sudden, we're going to end this, and the internet connection gets stellar. That'll probably last for 2 minutes. All right. Well, anyway, everybody, peace.
Goodbye.
Thanks for coming. Good night. Until we meet again.
All right.